You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, and the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right around the world. And don't forget, starting this Sunday, we're live in Belgium on Belgium Radio. My guest this hour is Lyle Sharman. He is a licensed private investigator and owner of United Private Investigations. Lyle graduated from Commercial Dive School in Oakland, California, and was the lead diver and marina operations manager for Playmate Resorts. Lyle changed careers and became a police officer and tactical trainer. Now, during that time, he was offered a position to be a bodyguard for the CEO of Mandalay Bay, a beautiful hotel in Las Vegas. And if you people have never been there, what can I say? You've got to go there. It's a beautiful place. Now, Lyle then spent the next 21 years as a security expert, executive personal protection, and director of security and surveillance with Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino Corporation. He was a criminal law instructor for Mojave Community College and a tactical trainer and use of force instructor for the International Police Tactical Training Academy. Lyle holds numerous international defense divisive tactic certifications. He is a published author and appeared in several video training programs, I should say. Now, Lyle is a professional bass player and has played bass for several well-known groups. His new passion is the paranormal investigations and mediums. Lyle is the director and lead investigator for Route 66 Paranormal Investigations and Paranormal Homicide Investigators. www.route66paranormalinvestigations.com. And Lyle Sharman, welcome to the X-Zone.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. That was a great introduction. You made me sound way better than I am.
Well, you know what? It's just one of those things. You know, you get lucky enough when you do an intro. However, you've done a lot in your lifetime, my friend. You know, you have 21 years in law enforcement, and now here you are, the head cheese of the Route 66 Paranormal Investigators, and what was the other one? Paranormal Homicide Investigations? Wow.
Paranormal Homicide Investigators, yeah.
So tell me, what was it that brought you into the world of the paranormal?
You know, it's really by accident. I've been in the private investigative field now. I've owned my own private investigations business for about 10 years, and so I've always been interested in investigating anything. And I was a person that followed and enjoyed the ghost shows on television, and I've always been an open-minded person. And so I had an opportunity. There was a location in Kingman, Arizona called the Brunswick Hotel, and I had an opportunity to go in and investigate, and it was kind of funny being, ex-law enforcement and having most of my friends in law enforcement. I tried to get a group of people together to go with me, and it was shocking how many people that, big, strong guys and girls that were afraid to go and told me, no way, I ain't going in there. And for a point there, I thought I was going in by myself, but finally rounded up enough people, and we went in, and by the end of the night, we were very shocked at what we had seen and what had occurred. And then, of course, it was just addicting. And it's one of these fields that I think the more you find, the more you experience, the more that you see, the more that you want. So it's like never enough. And I'm one of these people, I'll sit there and say, if you do this one more time, I'll leave you alone. And then I don't. I'll do it, ask them again. So I'm just always wanting more, and I guess that's why my career path has even been the way it is, where I'm just, always looking to try something new and different all the time.
So what was it during one of your investigations that had you hooked? What was the evidence, as police officers is evidence? What was the evidence that you saw that convinced you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the paranormal is real?
Well, it's really one of my very first experiences, and again we go back to the Brunswick Hotel. This was an ideal location because there was no furniture, no electronics, no power, no utilities, no nothing to this property. It was built back in 1905. It's when you look at it, it's everything that would scream to you haunted and a haunted location. So that alone was amazing, and it had a huge history. And thousands of people that had stayed in this hotel over the years when it was operating that had stories about paranormal. So we felt pretty confident that we were starting off in a great place, and it turned out we did. And I think for me and a lot of people that night, there was a situation where we were up on the third floor, and we'd been closing all the doors just to stir things up, closing doors, and some of them you couldn't shut all the way because the strike plates were missing. One particular door that was in the back of the third floor, the center and the top hinge were missing. So in order to even close the door, I had to lift up on it and pull it as far closed as I could. And at that point, one of the people in the group said they were seeing what would appear to be a shadowy-looking figure walking back and forth. And, when you're in the dark, your eyes can play tricks on you. So, like those of us in law enforcement in doing what I do, you're looking for things that are really concrete because you try to dismiss things that just, you try to say, well, it could be my eyes. And so we were looking down this hallway, and we couldn't really tell. It just looked like something would cross back and forth at the end of it. And all of a sudden, the door that I had closed behind us, it had flown open as if, like when law enforcement kicks a door in, that amount of force. And it slammed against the wall. And it was funny because back then we didn't have much equipment or anything. We were just brand new and really didn't even know much what we were doing. And so all you hear, we had audio running because we had some digital recorders, and I still have that audio. It's so funny, but all you hear is a lot of profanity and a lot of screaming, and it's coming from everybody, including me. And I was sure that I had missed somebody, like a homeless person that had been in that room and was coming out or something. And of course, there was nothing there. And we could not believe it. So that alone was shocking. But again, me being a guy, it's like I've got to be really proven. Mm-hmm. I pulled the door back shut again, and this thing was really lodged into the floor. And we stomped up and down. We did everything we could to see if we could make it happen. We couldn't. And I fired up the video camera, and I said, you kicked that door open once and scared us. Why don't you do it again? And it didn't do it, and then I said the word please, and that door flew open and slammed against the wall again, just the way it had just a few moments sooner. And so it was at that moment that I went from being open-minded to very much knowing. It was a great experience. What a great thing to experience your first time out the chute.
I guess so. I guess it would be. What did the other people who were with you say? Here you've got this proof beyond proof that this door went flying open. Did anybody have anything to say? Do you have any idea who it was, why it happened, what the history was?
We have no idea why it happened. A funny story. There was another on the other side of the hallway. We had closed the door, and when we went walking away, the door started to creep open. There was no wind, there was no ventilation, no air conditioning, nothing. And so we pulled the door back shut, started to walk away again, it started to open again. And that did it 3 times. We finally went back and put the camera on and started rolling. And I said, and again, a lot of people say, well, open the door or something. Me, I want specifics. So I'm like, open the door 6 inches. And the door opened 6 inches. And I said, open it 6 more inches. And it did it again. And I said, do it again. And it did it again. I said, close the door halfway. and it closed it halfway. And then I said, close the door all the way, and it closed it all the way. So again, this was a kind of significant thing. Now we've never really figured out who or what is in there. We never got any evidence that led us to that. We were very fortunate to go back to that location 5 times and collect a lot of information and do a lot of investigation there. So we're very, very fortunate to do it. And like I said, the people in the group, everybody was the same as me. They just couldn't believe it.
The name of your group is Route 66 Paranormal Investigators. What is the significance with Route 66? And what's the history, first of all, of Route 66? And then give us the paranormal aspect of it.
Well, I mean, first of all, the way that really, we started off with a different name. We were Tri-State Paranormal. We had a few different names. And a guy named Akil Anderson, who's a storyline producer for Ghost Hunters, he and I were talking one day, and I was talking about a lot of the locations. Well, living where I live in Arizona, Route 66 is a very popular highway for a lot of reasons. Car shows, motorcycle rides. It's one of the best stretches of Route 66 in the entire country, and one of the most scenic. And so there's a lot of old buildings and old history either directly on Route 66 or adjacent to Route 66. And so Akil said, look, you guys ought to call yourself Route 66 Paranormal Investigators, because most of the places that you seem to be investigating are on Route 66. And I never really thought about it that way. I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. And then just seemed kind of interesting name and hooky, and nobody else had a name like that. And we thought, well, heck, that sounds like a cool name. Let's do it. So it really was about, there's so many buildings and so many locations on Route 66 that are old and have a lot of history, and old hotels. And I mean, think about all the things and the different people that have died in different hotels and all this kind of stuff. And it just seemed like an interesting concept. So we're known to go and venture off of Route 66, but we try to focus on that. And of course, filming one of our shows is strictly focused on that highway. So that's how it all kind of intertwined and how we ended up with it.
What's the greatest location that you have ever investigated on Route 66?
Well, hands down, the Brunswick. Again, I keep coming back to the Brunswick, but I've been fortunate. We did a house called the Greenhouse in Needles, California. That's on Route 66. We've done a few places in Prescott, Arizona that were really cool. And so, but the Brunswick, I guess your first is usually your favorite, but especially when it's as active as it was that night with us. So it really was pretty easy to say. And we use that photo of the Brunswick in a lot of our photo shoots and a lot of our stuff, just because it does have such a great set with us.
How many haunted properties would you estimate are on the Arizona side of Route 66?
Oh, geez. I've never really counted, but I could tell you we've done over 130. So there's a lot of locations. We did on Route 66. Another great location is it's called the Grand Canyon Caverns, and it's just outside of Seligman, Arizona. It's a great place. You basically take an elevator ride down 220 feet into these deep caverns, and it's amazing down there. I just last year I filmed with Ghost Adventures. They just did an episode in there, and I filmed with them in it. And we were one of the first groups that ever investigated that location. And it really it's great. It's a neat place. There's actually even a hotel suite. People can book and stay in these caverns for a night in the hotel suite. The caverns are yours for the night. It's absolutely amazing, beautiful, spectacular place. But that's the kind of locations that you come up with on Route 66. So, I mean, it really is plentiful.
Let me ask you this. You're a former cop. I'm a former cop. When we were going out into an investigation, we were there to apprehend the guilty party. What are you guys searching for? What are you guys hoping to do by the investigations into the paranormal?
Right. You know, I'll tell you honestly, when I first got into this, and even a little bit now, it wasn't so much about what evidence I was going to find for other people. It was about me proving to me that this was real, and doing that by gaining as much evidence as I could in different and unique ways. using equipment that people were out there using, but also coming up with different things to use. I like things that physically move more than I like electronics, and just because when something physically falls, moves, does what you want it, to me that's just much more interesting. I always had this philosophy. There's people that don't believe in anything, and then there's people who are open-minded, and then there's people that know for a fact. And I was in the middle. I was one of those people that were open-minded. Why not? And oddly enough, and I don't know if you see this from your background in law enforcement, but I saw it a lot in mine, is that most people in law enforcement really kind of shun away from it and think you're nuts. And where I was just a more open-minded person about a lot of things. And maybe that's because, I played in a rock band and, I was a diver. I just wasn't just a cop my whole life. I did a lot of other things, and being a rocker, you're pretty wild. So I guess maybe that just made me more open-minded. But and then of course there's the people that know for the fact, and that's, I think you do this long enough and you see enough and experience enough, then you know for a fact. You've had enough happen that you know that. I've been scratched. I've been bitten. I've had enough things happen that I don't even now, like in the beginning when you do this, and a lot of new investigators, if somebody comes up to them and says, oh, you're crazy, none of that stuff exists, they'll probably get angry and argue, whereas me today, and the longer you do this, if somebody tells me they don't believe in it, I don't even care. Sure. Because I really didn't set out, like it's not like in law enforcement. I've got to go get a suspect, I've got to prove they're guilty, and I've got to put together enough case so it can go to trial and that we can all win and make my job easy for the prosecution and the whole deal. Well, in this field, you really don't have to do that. You just have to be happy yourself, and if you're going to, even like television shows today, it's people. The only people that tune in to watch paranormal shows are people that believe. So you don't have to try to get non-believers to tune in. There's plenty of believers that tune in. So I guess that makes it a little bit different than the law enforcement aspect of it.
So what have you found out over your so many hundreds of investigations that is common thread in all of these haunted locations, if any?
Yeah, I honestly don't think I've ever really come up with a common thread. It seems like no matter where I go, what I do, or how we do it, it's always something different. There's times when it seems like whatever's happening, it just wants to happen. And then there's other times that it seems like you got to beg for it to happen. Sometimes one piece of equipment works, but nothing else. And sometimes three pieces of equipment work, but the other ones that normally work don't. And it's just interesting to me that I don't get it. And, we keep trying to figure it out. But I think here again for me, for paranormal investigations, it's more about, entertainment for us. It's more about us learning and believing, and then just the addictive fact that, you go to a lake and you throw out a line and you catch a fish, you're not happy. You want to get another one, and then you want to get another one, and you want to get another one. It goes on and on and on. You take off on a beautiful day of motorcycle riding, and you want a second day, and you want a third day. And so I think it's just common nature. We just constantly want more. And so I think paranormal is no different. Those of us that do this and are passionate about it, we get something and we want to get more. And for me, it's just I've never really seen a consistent thing. I just seen a lot of things, and you just don't know which one of those many techniques and tools that you're going to have in your tool chest to use that are going to be the ones that operate that evening.
What can you tell me about their greenhouse in Needles, California?
Well, we would need a lot more than this hour. I could tell you a lot of things, but I could tell you this: it's a great location, a beautiful property. Everybody that, like when I live in an area close to Bullhead City, Arizona, it's about 90 miles from Las Vegas. It's right on the Colorado River. Laughlin, Nevada, which is a small gaming community, is right across the river. So for years, this community has existed, and mostly it was for many years it was a very small town. A lot of people that came here came from Southern California, and everybody that came to Bullhead City to go boating and partying and whatever it was they were going to do, gambling, whatever, for the weekend, had to pass this greenhouse. So there was, so many people had loved it. And what makes it so unique is it's the kind of house that you see back east in New York or Pennsylvania, but it's not the kind of house you see on the West Coast, because you just don't see houses that are built like this in 3 stories and a basement. I mean, you don't even get basements anywhere over here on the West Coast because of the water tables and stuff. They just don't do it. And so this house has all that. So it, all by itself, it just sticks out like a crazy sore thumb anyhow. And so what's funny about it is when we went to do it, I posted on our Facebook page that we were about to investigate the greenhouse and needles, and we literally that night gained 3,000 likes and followers. Mm-hmm. That's how crazy that location was. Boy, if we could duplicate that every time. But it's just a unique place. It's had many, many, many residences there and owners over the years. The primary claims there has always been that a small young girl that is seen at the property or outside the property. One lady claimed she was driving down the road and a small child ran out in front of her. She hit her brakes, went over the curb, and then realized there was nothing there. And so that seems to be the claim. And for us, that seems to be the evidence we gained from there. One owner said that she saw a man, a woman holding a child coming up the stairs when she was living there. So it all seems to be, a man, a woman in their mid-30s and a small girl. And that's been... it seems to be what we find. Now, there is some talk that there was underground tunnels, and we did find proof of that, and that they used Chinese laborers back then to operate from the river and from the train station and brought them in. And, opium was a big distribution back then, and it appears a lot of that's true as well.
So when you're doing this background investigation into the properties that you investigate, how do you know if somebody's shooting you a line or whether, in fact, it's true? And maybe the person who is feeding you the information is just trying to keep the myth alive. How do you dispel the difference between the fact and the fiction? Well, I mean, as everything, we do go in and interview past owners and stuff like that. And then I think you have to, and maybe it's just unique to me as it would be with you, you interview people as law enforcement and private investigations, and you get very good at it, and you have a unique skill set that the average person just does not have and can't acquire unless they do that. So you learn how to pick up on if someone's telling you the truth. Now, this may sound very foreign to a lot of paranormal investigators because they wouldn't get it, but like me, I've gone through a school called the Reed Technique of Interview and Interrogation, and you may be aware of that. And it's to pick up on signs and things that people do and how they talk and the way that you design your questions to tell if somebody is telling you the truth or not telling you the truth. So I use that when I interview people just to find out if they are. And then you got to build up their credibility. Do they have a motive? Is there a reason for them to make it up to lie? And then, of course, you go, like me, if somebody says, well, I'll give you a perfect example. If we go back to the Grand Canyon Caverns, when I first started investigating there, the story was from the owners and the tour guides and everybody that a guy named Gary Ringsby hung himself in the living room of the bunker house on the property, and he was the general manager. Well, when I went in, and they love this story, and they love to use that story because they give ghost tours and everything. Well, I come in, and the first thing I want to do as a private investigator is research the property, and I want to do that before I become a paranormal investigator and go in. And so I was able to discover that Gary Ringsby actually shot himself in Boulder, Colorado. He never did hang himself. They weren't really happy that I found that out because they loved, spinning that story. But of course, and if you watch the episode with Ghost Adventures with Zach and them, when they interview me, and when they will specifically tell you that Lyle Sharman, as a private investigator, was able to debunk and figure out that that's not what happened, and that type of stuff. So that's how I use. That's the way I operate. And if something's not true, it's just not true. I'm not going to spin it that way. All right, Lyle, stand by. You and I have to take our break at the bottom of the hour. Exo Nation, Lyle Sharman is our guest. www.route66paranormalinvestigators.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Coming up after this interview, we have the Science of Magic. That's right. We're going to be playing the most recent Science of Magic episode with Wilda Wieka. And she's going to be interviewing Belinda Womack. Angels, spirits, much more tonight here on the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Welcome back, everyone. Lyle Sharman is our special guest. www.route66paranormalinvestigators.com. Lyle is the lead investigator and executive producer. Once again, www.route66paranormalinvestigators.com. Lyle, you and I were talking before about the greenhouse needles in California. What about Grasshopper Junction?
Well, that's another great thing. It's, we're doing these two shows. One, obviously, is the Route 66, but the other one is called Paranormal Homicide Investigators. And the way that all kind of happened was, I was doing some research at a local museum in Kingman, Arizona, and the guy that runs it said, "Hey, you guys need to go out and investigate this place out at Grasshopper Junction where these two people were robbed and murdered back in 1991." And I said, well, I've heard about that, but I've never really known where the place is. And he told me it was out on Highway 93, which travels from Kingman, Arizona to Las Vegas, and kind of the back way to Boulder Dam and stuff. And so I said, yeah, we'll have to go out there. So I ran out and met with the owners, and it was kind of funny, really. The guy was he was a retired Department of Defense, and he as soon as I told him who I was, he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here." He said, "We've had all kinds of crazy stuff happen, and I was just watching one of the ghost shows on TV last night, and I told my wife, we need to find a group or find somebody who can come here and check our place." And he goes, "And here you are." So basically, in 1991, two people were robbed and murdered in the middle of the night by Robert and Roger Murray, who Robert has since passed away of natural causes. They're both on death row in Florence, Arizona. Roger's still alive. But it became a passion, to be honest with you. Next thing you knew, I was using my private investigations business because these guys were still in the appeal system. And so we wanted to find out why, and they were still claiming that they were innocent and that they had never committed these crimes. And so we decided to reopen the case through my private investigations business, which we did. And we went back and interviewed all the original detectives. We went back and found officers from Alabama that were involved in certain aspects before the Murray brothers got out this way. And then as well, we found the highway patrol officer, based on a hunch, who pulled them over when they went on a high-speed pursuit and everything. It wouldn't have been for him, they would have never caught these brothers, more than likely. And we've since filmed. We've been filming and working on this for 2 years. We're the only ones that have a live interview with Robert Murray before he passed away, or the only interview, and we're getting ready to do one with Roger Murray. And so the whole concept of Grasshopper Junction and Paranormal Homicide Investigators is you're basically taking your favorite crime drama show, your favorite ghost hunting show, and then throwing a medium into the mix. And the goal is to go back, open different murder cases for all kinds of reasons. It doesn't have to be any particular reason, but whatever the reason is, we'll re-look at that case, re-present that story to the public, and who better to get your answers from as to who killed them, why they got killed, what happened, than to actually speak to the victims themselves.
But you're not speaking to the victims. You're going through a medium, and how do you know the information that the medium is getting is true and accurate?
Well, we actually do speak to the victim. So we use the medium as well, but we actually communicated with the victims themselves, and the way we did that was, and we've actually conducted the first paranormal lineup, if you will, that we're aware that's ever occurred. So we took 7 photographs, put them out on a table, and then used a K2 meter as well as a REM pod. And we put this in the middle of the floor where these, in this house where these 2 people were murdered, and we asked them to make the equipment go off if we placed the equipment on the person that was responsible for killing them. And the only time that the K2 and the REM pod would go off is when we actually placed it on Robert or Roger Murray. We changed the pictures around, we did various ways to do it. And yet the only time that they would ever go off is with Robert and Roger Murray. Now, a lot of people are going to see this when the show comes out.
But tell me, how does the K2 work?
Well, it operates off electromagnetic fields. And, it's funny that you bring up K2 because K2s were designed for paranormal research by a company that builds PET equipment. And so I learned early on, I'll kind of take you off a little bit to the side here, I don't just use equipment and presume that it operates and it really functions and communicates with ghosts. So I like to learn different things about equipment. So one of the things I did when I first started using, for instance, the K2 or an electromagnetic field meter was I contacted a professor with electromagnetic field at Northern Arizona State University up in Flagstaff, Arizona, as well as a company that specializes in electromagnetic field testing for the state of California. And so I went to them to get educated. And when I would record certain evidence, I would give that to these 2 people and say, how is that possible? Is there a scientific explanation as to why that could happen? And many times, even those 2 experts would sit there looking at our video and looking at the audio, looking at everything, and they'd look at it and say, I don't know how that's possible. That makes no sense. So they would tell us, you either set it up, or we have no explanation. And so that's the kind of stuff we looked for. And I think it's important, like people that use K2s and different electromagnetic field meters and I learned this from the experts. They didn't even know what that was, but they said, you need to get like a tri-field meter because the K2 only picks up directional. You get a tri-field meter, it picks up all the way around, and it'll do electromagnetic, electric, and microwave. So if you happen to get a piece of equipment hitting, then you can go and take a tri-field meter, a more expensive piece of equipment, and figure out what it is. Is it electric? Is it magnetic? Or is it microwave? And that can sometimes help you figure out if you're dealing with something that seems unexplainable or if it's something that's just man-made. So we use a lot of that type of equipment when we do investigations such as Grasshopper Junction so that we're more convinced and more thorough about who it is we're speaking with and that the evidence is more solid.
All right. How many people were actually in the area of these photographs that you were using the K2 meter to get these readings on? Was there just yourself, or were there other investigators?
No. We had we switched around, but we had our primary investigative staff. So
how many?
It either was me, typically 5 to 6. I don't like, and we typically will share the time. So I don't like having 5 or 6 people together at the same time for anything. I like 1 or 2 and 3 at the most. So, but I got a guy named John Pinecker, another guy named Ray Schmidt. They're both my 2 main lead guys. We got Michaela, who's a girl that we recently brought in. She was actually part of the production staff, and she did so great. We said, hey, you'd be better in front of a camera. And then we just brought in a girl, Jamie, who worked in Tombstone at the Birdcage Theater for several years, and was involved with a lot of that.
Why I was asking you, about the number of people, because isn't it true that if someone is excited about something, that their electromagnetic field, expands? So if you've got 5 people and they know which picture is of this person in this lineup, you put the K meter there, you've got 5 people who are excited because this is the suspect. Wouldn't that that's really not a blind test of the accuracy of the lineup, is it?
Well, one, we didn't have 5 people at any given time. Again, we would have anywhere from 2, 3 at the most. Secondly, I've operated electromagnetic field equipment for years now, and whether it's 3 or 4 people, and I can tell you there's many times I've been pretty excited about something that's been happening, and I've never seen my K2 or my EMF go off because of that.
Really?
Yeah, never have. Never seen that go off due to any type of excitement or negative or anything that we were doing. It was always very calm, and 1 or 2 people, 3 people at the most. Sometimes we didn't even know what the answer to the question was. So in this instance, for us, and again, you're not just dealing with a K2. We brought in a couple pieces of equipment. So the REM pod that I use is actually one of the REM pods that emits an electromagnetic field. So rather than it detecting one, it emits one. So basically, you had a K2 that detects an electromagnetic field and a REM pod that produces it, that are over 3 feet apart. That you could put them right next to each other and they don't influence each other. We've tested that.
So why would you
have to be within an inch of the antenna to make that operate? So again, we like to use various pieces of equipment at the same time. That way, it's not just one thing going off. Which, to your point, we would want to try to show that it wasn't us influencing the equipment.
So what is the purpose of having a piece of equipment that transmits a signal if you're trying to prove that there is a signal there?
Well, the REM pod, by emitting a signal, if something breaks its signal, it will go off. And for it to break the signal, it has to get within 1 inch of the antenna. So the theory behind it would be that whatever was manipulating that piece of equipment had to get within an inch or so of the antenna to manipulate it.
What do you think the future of ghost hunting? And I don't like that term, ghost hunting, because when you hunt something, you kill it. You're supposed to, if I believe everything I've been told, then what you're hunting is already dead. And why do you think that the quest for research into the paranormal is so popular these days? What's the hook?
Well, I think a lot of people. Well, first of all, the shows. Obviously, the shows have made it exciting, and I don't think it matters. If you look at any reality television show that's on TV, if you're a little kid and you're watching The Lone Ranger, when we were growing up, you wanted to be the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
If you watch Superman, the kids watch Superman, they want to be Superman, they want to be Batman. So we watch a lot of people that are open-minded and want to know what happens when we die and these different things. They see it on television. They saw it on television. Now they want to go do it.
Well, I don't know about that. When I was a kid, I watched Wonder Woman, and I never wanted to be Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, that would be a different story. That's good to know. But
don't you think?
But I do. I think.
Don't you think with all the different shows that there's going to come a time where the entire scenario and the interest in ghosts are just going to fizzle out?
I don't think it'll ever fizzle out, but I think you're already seeing some level of where people are becoming a little less interested. And I think a perfect example, no matter what you do, you buy a brand new car, within, maybe a few months, maybe a year, you don't wash it as much, you're not in love with it as much. It doesn't seem to matter what it is. So you look at the show Ghost Hunters, 11 great seasons, and they're pretty much about ready to wrap up. Yeah. How much longer will Ghost Adventures? I mean, Zach is smart. He created another spin-off of Ghost Adventures to keep things alive. I think that's necessary. Now, with that in mind, keep in mind that the channel Destination America has now gone completely paranormal. So every show that's going to be on there is going to be a ghost show. So they must be seeing a trend that is different in some aspects than what we're seeing. So,
or is
especially if they think that,
or is it the case where there are so many channels now that they have to put something in the channel to keep it, or else the FCC is going to say, that's a void channel, can it?
No, I don't think so. I think the networks want to put things on the television that sell and that people are going to tune in to watch. And so I think there's still a lot of interest. I think there's going to be a lot of interest for a very long time. I don't think it's as new as that brand new car, but I think it's still going very strong, and I think you're going to see it go strong for many, many, many years to come. And even if it kind of fizzled out for a year or two, all of a sudden something's going to come back and it's going to pound again.
How come there hasn't been any startling discovery when it comes to the paranormal in years? Like, no one has been able to come up with anything new.
Well, I guess it depends what your definition of startling is.
Evidence.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, for me, I captured, a full body shape, size, everything, walk right in front of one of our cameras. To me, that's pretty cool. But again, I have a different take on this kind of stuff because to me, it's not about startling. It's not, I could tell you, like, one time investigating, and all of a sudden I feel burning on my leg, and when we lift my pant leg and pull down my socks, I'm bleeding, and I have 2 huge scratches. I go to a doctor to say, hey, is there a medical explanation for this? And they can't give me one. When I get a bite mark on my back, and you can see the teeth marks perfectly, to me that's pretty startling.
All right, tell me something.
Pretty interesting.
How can something that cannot be seen, has no density, has no mass,
right,
use teeth to put an imprint in your back? How does that happen?
Boy, I would love to know the answer to that question. And someone that had it done to them, believe me, it's more. You want that answer more than anybody wants it, and I wish I had that answer for you. I can't give it to you. I don't know. I just know it happened, and it happened to me. And so it's the kind of stuff we all do. It's why you do it. You go out, and I think again, it's never been about trying to prove anything to anybody. It's been about me enjoying and seeing my own and feeling my own experiences.
Then why do you want to put it on TV?
Well, I think there's a lot of interesting stories to tell on TV. So this homicide show for us was more about presenting the different cases and different reasons why homicide cases are out there, and it's really the reason we reached out on that. And then the bottom line is, I mean, even like if you go to Route 66, a question I've had that asked before: why do the Route 66 paranormal show? And look, I love Route 66. I love riding motorcycles on Route 66. I love traveling on Route 66, and I love ghost hunting. And so, if I have an opportunity to share that passion with people through television, I'm going to do it. And then the bottom line is, we all do things to make a living, and if there's a way to have a television show and enjoy having that out there and meeting people and sharing your experiences and making a living at it, there's nothing wrong with that, because if you're in radio, television, whatever you're doing, you're making money. And so however you make your money, you make your money. And
Lyle,
if you make it from a television
Lyle,
show,
we've run out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really great talking to you. X-Zone Nation, our guest this hour has been Lyle Sharman. www.route66paranormalinvestigators.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we present you the science of magic with Gwilda Wieka, and the first guest this hour is Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. My name is Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.